Hello everyone, and welcome to my newbie guide for Starfield. I'm your host, Colors Fade. Starfield is a very big RPG with a lot of different systems that unfortunately aren't explained very well by the game's user interface. In this guide, we'll take a look at some of the most common things you need to know before getting underway in the galaxy. I will not be covering everything, obviously, because the game is too big and that would take too long. Instead, what I'm going to cover here should help alleviate some of the frustration that can occur in the first 20 hours or so of gameplay, hence the word newbie in the title. Also, I'm a PC player, so all references to specific commands will be for the PC. Console players will have to do the research to figure out what the corresponding controller button is. Sorry, Xbox players. The first thing to understand is the underline means hold. Many buttons in the game are used for dual purposes, probably because the game was primarily built for controllers. And the way Bethesda has decided to approach this is by utilizing a short button press for one function and a longer press and hold for the other function. The way to differentiate between these two functions in the UI is by looking for the underline. When a button is underlined, it means holding that button will trigger the function. So as an example, like many buttons in the game, the F key serves two purposes. Holding F will bring up your flashlight. Pressing F quickly will bring up the scanner. So while we're here, let's talk about the scanner. It's an incredibly useful tool in the game because not only will it show you objects you can interact with and loot, but it will also show you pathways to the currently marked quest. This is valuable because Starfield has no mini-maps and the local maps are functionally useless. In order to find your way around cities, you're going to need to learn the lay of the land. Yes, Morrowind fans, you finally won. And you're going to want to make judicious use of your scanner to get around. And while I'm on it, do yourself a favor and set your journal to show only active targets. This will declutter your screen of quest markers and allow you to focus on the current objective. The second thing the scanner does is allow you to scan plants, minerals, and animal life. However, scanning is not entirely intuitive at first. For starters, the scanner has a very limited range. You might wonder, why can't I scan this object? Well, it's because you're not close enough. You have to get up close to something to scan it. Fortunately, investing in the scanning skill will increase this range. For the time being, you're going to have to deal with getting up close and personal. Once you're close enough, pressing the E key will scan the object, incrementing the planet's overall scan score. The object will then change from an outline to a filled-in image. For minerals, scanning them one time will turn the filled-in color to green, which means you're done scanning it. For animals and plants, you'll need to scan them multiple times. They'll fill in as a color of blue, and then when they're finally done and you've reached 100% for that plant or animal, it will be green. My apologies to all the colorblind people out there. Scanning is just one type of skill in the game. Given that this is an RPG, there are lots of skills and some are more important than others. Before I cover my recommendations for starting skills, I want to talk about how they work. In prior Bethesda titles like Elder Scrolls Oblivion or Elder Scrolls Skyrim, using a skill made you better at it, more or less. Bethesda abandoned that approach for Fallout 4 and instead created a really cool perk tree where perks were unlocked simply by investing points in them. Every time the player made a level, they could invest a new perk point in a new skill, provided they had a high enough rank in the appropriate ability score or special. That was really the gatekeeping mechanism, was what your special score was. First you had to invest enough points in special, then you could invest perks in the skills. My own personal preference between these two systems is the Fallout 4 way. I like it the most because it gives you the power to build your character however you want, regardless of how you actually use the character. But Bethesda with Starfield has sort of combined both of these systems. Technically, you can pick any skill you want to invest your points in as you level up. However, instead of these skills being locked behind a special ability point system requirement like Fallout 4, they are now locked behind a set of tiered requirements with challenges. What that means is that if you want to improve your lock picking skill, for instance, so you can crack tougher locks, you need to invest in the security skill. But unlike Fallout 4, you cannot just poke more points into lockpicking to unlock the harder locks. Before you can take the second level of the skill, you first need to complete a challenge. You'll need to unlock a set number of locks before you can actually spend another point in security, even if you already have the points to spend. you have to complete the challenges. Thus, this system is a combination of both types of systems from the previous Bethesda games, from both Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Skyrim, and Fallout 4. Investing points in skills allows the player to unlock more powerful features of those skills, but the player still has to use those skills to complete challenges to do any meaningful progression in them. As for what skills are important to new players, I'd put them in this order: security, persuasion, and weightlifting when starting out. Security, because like every Bethesda game, there's a ton of locks, and sometimes you can find nice loot behind locked doors and in locked containers. Persuasion, to make many of the quests either easier or just have different outcomes. And weightlifting, to give yourself some more carrying capacity, although having more carrying capacity really doesn't solve the problem, and we'll talk more about hoarding later in this guide. As for what skill you should target later on, I would suggest rejuvenation, which is in the physical tree, as it will allow you to heal over time so you can stop using so many med packs. Ship command under the social tree, as it will allow you to have more crew members on your ship, granting your ship many more useful buffs. You're also going to want spacesuit design, weapon engineering, outpost engineering, and starship design. These are all found under the science and tech trees, and these are what are going to allow you to do all the crafting and modification in the game. Since we're on the topic of skills, let's talk about the lockpicking minigame, the Digipick. This is without a doubt the most creative lockpicking minigame I've ever seen. Hats off to Bethesda for inventing it. The game itself is fairly simple. You have a number of digipicks that have a set of markers on them, and it's up to the player to orient these markers such that they unlock the layers of rings until the lock is completely bypassed. What may not be apparent early on to new players is that there's a color scheme happening here to help assist. Clicking on a digipick will make each ring in the lock a shade of blue or green. Gray means the digipick cannot work on that ring, and blue means it can. Thus, this is a quick way for players to eliminate digipicks on a given ring. Now, granted, the trick is that some digipicks can work on multiple layers of rings, so figuring out the correct ring to use it on can take a little bit of thought and time. Fortunately, the game allows you to undo your choices if you get stuck. On a PC, simply hit the R key to progressively undo your digipick choices and then try a different sequence. Now that we know how to lockpick, it's time to set off on the galaxy and kill some bad guys and take their stuff, right? As you play the intro into the game, you'll acquire your first weapon fairly quickly, and it won't take long to acquire a lot more weapons either. There are a wide variety of weapons and ammo types in the game, and the first thing you're going to want to do with this is hotkey the ones that you intend to use and make them favorites. On the PC, this is the B key, which will bring up the favorite graphic. Then just map the weapon to the available key you want to use. Favoriting a weapon like this is beneficial in two ways. First, there's the really obvious way, and that will allow you to quickly swap to a different weapon for a given situation. But more importantly, I think, it will make it far easier to sell weapons later on, because you'll easily be able to see the weapons you're not using because they won't have the favorite heart icon next to them. Thus, you can just breeze through your weapon inventory selling anything that doesn't have a heart. And don't worry, if you do sell something you want to keep by accident, vendors have a buyback option. In general, you should look to field an array of weapons that do different damage types and utilize different ammo varieties. Have weapons that do energy damage or otherwise hurt robotic enemies, and also field weapons that do good damage to humans and animals. It's a good idea to have a ranged weapon, and it's a good idea to have a close-up weapon like some kind of shotgun that does massive damage really close in. Also, do yourself a favor and hotkey the med kit for quick access. When it comes to exploring, I only really have one piece of advice, and it is this: always rest before disembarking from your ship, because resting grants you an XP bonus. When you are about to leave your ship, do not take the easy direct exit on the leftmost choice. Instead, choose to stand up from your captain's chair, go to your ship's bed, and take a quick nap. Get that XP bonus. The same thing goes for research. Your starting ship will have a small research station, and it's here that you can unlock certain recipes that can help you craft things for your travels. However, there is also an aid item, or should I say 2 aid items, called Neurojack and Synapse Alpha, that will also give you a boost to your research. Research isn't something you'll do very often, so it's a good idea to check first to see if you can actually research a lot of things, and then use one of these components before doing it. You'll know if you have the available materials to do a bunch of research by looking for this yellow slashing graphic to the left side of each ingredient. If you can do a lot of research combines, then take a minute and give yourself a temporary buff via Neurojack or the Synapse Alpha, and then do a bunch of research. So we're ready to adventure out in the galaxy. Let's talk about how to deal with all that loot we're going to acquire. Starfield will drop an absolute ton of loot on the player, and just like in prior games such as Skyrim and Fallout 4, being over-encumbered will prevent you from fast traveling. This isn't actually a big deal in Starfield, however, because most of the time you'll be acquiring the massive quantities of loot on quests in specific locations, and when you're done, the place will be empty, and you can take your time walking out to your ship. But what do you do with all that loot once you get it to your ship? Your starship can only hold so much, and the starter ship you get has a very small cargo hold. One solution is to dump some of the gear off on your companions, but again, they can only hold so much, and you still have to remember to interact with them to get it back before you can sell it. Odds are, even if you load up your companion while you're adventuring, the two of you are still going to acquire way more loot than either of you can carry before you exit a location. So what should you do? My advice is to get comfortable being overburdened. There are only a few disadvantages to being encumbered in this game. Yes, it will inhibit fast travel, but this is a Bethesda game. There's always a shortcut at the end of the dungeon, and it won't take you long to walk out to your ship. Being encumbered will also cause you to consume more oxygen while walking and running, and if you overexert yourself, you'll do CO2 damage to yourself. But after running through several quest dungeons, I found it easier to simply accept being over-encumbered. The benefit of having all that loot far outweighed the advantage of staying light. Most of the time, you'll have several chances to rest before tackling a group of enemies, so take a minute, heal up, get your oxygen back to full, and then hit them hard. In the end, the encumbrance issue isn't that big of a deal, and if you just loot every single weapon and spacesuit you find, you'll walk out with a hefty chunk of cash to help you build a nest egg toward that awesome starship you want. The question remains, however, what to do with all that stuff once you get back to your ship. As stated earlier, you can give some of it to your companions, but if you do, you still have to take it back before selling it. You can dump a lot of it in your cargo hold, but a starter ship won't take long to fill up. However, you can also just chuck it all over the floor, which I highly recommend doing, at least until you can sell it. Once you reach a city like New Atlantis or Aquila, there will be a vendor close by where you can buy and sell things. Fortunately, you can sell things directly from your ship's cargo hold, though you can't sell any of the items you scattered across the deck. Now, the problem here is that if you gobble up every piece of loot while you're out adventuring, you may have a difficult time selling it because vendors only have so much cash on hand. However, you can quickly change this. Ammo is expensive. I recommend buying ammunition for the weapons you're currently using, and this will give the vendor an influx of cash. Then sell all the weapons and spacesuits and helmets from your inventory that you're not going to use, and sell everything from your ship's inventory that you're not going to use. If you have items scattered across the deck of your ship, pick those up and either place them in the cargo hold or carry them back to the vendor. Either way, rinse, repeat, profit. In the end, you'll wind up with all the vendor's cash and all their ammo. That's a win-win for you. As you work your way through the game, you may become very frustrated with how little extra weight you can seemingly carry. It's not necessary to always be encumbered, even if you want to be a hoarder. There are times when you just need a little extra more space in your inventory to grab a few choice items, and you want to stay light so you can run or something. But where is all that weight going? How is it adding up? How am I so freaking heavy? That's because your weight is coming from two hidden sources: resources and aid. Resources are items that you'll acquire while exploring that can be used for crafting, and most of them have substantial weight that quickly adds up. My advice is to always dump resources in your cargo hold as soon as you get back from an adventure. The other insidious, hidden source of weight comes from the aid category. As you adventure, you're likely to pick up a lot of different kinds of aid. The game has a lot more than just med packs. However, you don't need most of these items while you're out on a mission. It's a good idea to take the med kits and maybe a couple other items that either deal with bleeding or pump up your damage resistance. And if you know you're going to go talk to somebody, take something for persuasion. Outside of that, most of your aid items can be stuffed in your cargo hold and only need to be used after you've returned to your ship. By trimming down your aid inventory, you will shave pounds off of your carry weight, which is absolutely fantastic. With all that out of the way, let's briefly talk about ships. Ships deserve their own guide, considering there is a ship builder in the game that will allow you to customize your ships. But for a newbie guide, that's a bit too much information, so I'm going to stick with the stuff that you need to know to get started. First off, when you start flying your ship, it's not really apparent what all these various acronyms stand for. Let me break them down for you. LAS is for lasers, which lasers quickly take down enemy shields. You want to use those when the enemy shield is up. BAL is for ballistics. That's what you want to do once the shield is down. Ballistics take out the hull quite a bit faster. Same with missiles, MSL. And then there is also the EM, which is an EMP style weapon that you want to use to bypass the enemy shields and hit their engines directly. But you can only do that after you have the targeting skill. Remember, lots of things in the game are locked behind skills in the skill tree, and you got to unlock those things before you can use them. Being able to use your ship's thrusters, for instance, being able to specifically target enemy hard points on their ships, that's all locked behind certain skills, so keep that in mind. ENG is for engine, SHD is for your shield, and GRV is for your gravity drive. Now here's where it gets interesting. On the PC, if you hold down the Alt keyboard and then use your A and D keys to move left and right, you can use your W and S keys to individually power up or down a given component. So you can redistribute power, for instance, from the missiles to the lasers if you want more laser power, or to your EM or whatever. The most important part of this function of being able to redistribute power is to power up your grav drive. In normal flying situation, what you want to do is have your shields maxed and then have whichever weapons you're most comfortable with in your ship ready to go. I prefer to put lots of power into my lasers so that I can quickly take down shields and then missile them to death in the end. However you want to distribute your power, your grav drive does not need to be powered up when you're just flying and fighting. When you get ready to go somewhere else, you're going to need to power up your grav drive. Now there's a whole bunch of pips here and you can make your grav drive really powerful, but all that really does is speed up how quickly the grav drive kicks into gear. All you really need to do to travel anywhere is put 1 point into your grav drive and then it will take off after 5 or 6, 7 seconds. The benefit of this is when you land in a hostile system, and you're going to be attacked right away, you will only have 1 power pip that's not being used because that's all you allocated to your grav drive. And if you want it, you can quickly take it and add it back to lasers or wherever you took it from. So my advice is when you're getting ready to travel to somewhere where that might be hostile, you're unsure about it, or it's unmapped for you, only put 1 point into the grav drive. Now, if you need to get away really fast, that's going to be when you want to push everything into your grav drive and get the heck out of Dodge really quickly. The second thing I want to talk about in this guide is how to quickly get an upgraded ship. Your starter ship is fine and it looks really cool, but it's also not a good ship and you're going to quickly find yourself outclassed. I also don't think it's worth the money investment to try to upgrade it when there are better ships for you to get in the game just by doing some quests, and one of those quests comes along pretty quickly. If you follow the main quest far enough, you'll meet this guy, and then you'll meet this guy. This is when you get in with the Free Star Rangers, and my advice is to do their quest all the way to the end as soon as possible because it results in a brand spanking new ship for you that is much more suited to what you actually want to do in the game. The nice thing about this ship is not only is it more powerful than the starter ship you're going to have, it's also going to come with EMP weapons, which allow you to take down and capture enemy ships faster once you have the appropriate targeting skill. And it also comes with a brig if you want to capture people. All in all, it's a huge upgrade over your starter ship, and I totally recommend going down this quest line as fast as possible. It's the only thing in the game that I actually recommend rushing. Everything else, take your time. Now, after you acquire this first free new ship from the Freestar Rangers, you're going to want to know how the heck do you actually get to use it, because as you walk out to the landing pad, you're going to notice that your old ship is still there. Well, that's where this place comes in. Just outside of Aquila City gates is a place called Ship Services. Most places have a Ship Services, and you want to be able to walk in here and talk to this guy. If you go to I'd like to view and modify my ships, you can then click on this part up here and you can change your ship to whatever you want it to be. This will show you all the ships that you own. And then you can select a ship and you can change it down here. You can see make home ship. Click that and that'll make it your default ship. And then when you walk out to the landing pad, that will be the ship that you're going to use. And one other thing to note, once you acquire a new ship, you're going to want to go sell your old ship. But the thing about selling your ship is you can't actually sell this ship right away. You actually have to progress far enough into the main quest, and then you can start selling ships. I know it's a little bit cumbersome. People are going to get here and wonder, how come I can't sell the ship? Why can't I sell it? It's just a quest locked thing. Don't sweat it. And so while we're on the topic of ships, let's quickly talk about docking, because it's not immediately intuitive. As you start to fly closer to things like space stations, you may wonder, why can't you dock with it? Where is the signal to dock with it? Is there something I should be doing? Yes, there is. What you have to do on the PC is you have to click the E key to target it. Then once it's targeted, you'll see the icons come up for hailing it or requesting docking when you're close enough. The request dock is the R key. So remember, first target it with the E key and then R for the docking key. Finally, I want to take a little time to walk you through using the Galactic Map, because it can be a little bit cumbersome. You don't have to actually get into your ship cockpit, pull up your controls, and launch out into space to travel through space. All you really have to do is hit the M key, and you can do this at any particular point in time. For instance, if you're standing outside your ship anywhere in a city, as long as you are not over encumbered, you can press the M key and bring up the Galactic Map. It'll bring up the town map first for the local area that you're in. And remember, this is functionally a useless map. But then you can tab, if you're on the PC, and drop back. The star map basically has 3 layers. There is the overall galactic layer. Then there is the system layer, which will allow you to select individual celestial bodies to visit. And then there's the local layer, which will show you the particular planet that you're looking at. Note the Show Resources key. At any point in time, you can look at the resources on a planet as long as you've visited that planet. So for instance, this is the planet Stellus in the Cheyenne system. I haven't physically been there, so I can't scan the resources. It's a bit like Star Trek. You got to go to the planet and do that. At any point in time, though, you can hit the X key and it'll show you this. You can travel there. We're going to do that because it's got an underline. We're going to hold it and go there. So what I want to leave the video off with is ship combat. This is the last thing we'll cover. The first thing I want to point out is that ships have 2 bars on them. The top bar is their shields and the bottom bar is their hull. You notice that the shields right there are regenerated in the center screen. Your lasers are your best option for getting rid of the shields, and then you can use ballistic weapons and missiles to destroy the hull pretty effectively. You always want to be aware of your own shields at the same time. And one of the things you really want to do is notice how I'm fluctuating the speed there. You want to lower your speed to make a tighter turn and then speed back up and get on the tail of an enemy where you can totally obliterate them with your lasers and then take them out with the ballistics and your weapons. There is also an option if you have EMP weapons to cut straight through the lasers and go for specific things like the engines. That's how you're going to be able to board ships and own them and then later on sell them. But to do that, you'll need the targeting skill. So for now, the most important thing to do at the very beginning of the game is just be really aware of your speed, be really aware of your shields and what the enemies are doing to you. You can also get ship repair parts. And so on the PC, this is the O key, and it will allow you to repair your ship. And then the next thing I want to talk about is really important, is about making sure that you loot stuff when you're done. So once you've destroyed all the enemy ships in an area, they will all drop loot and you need to go pick it up. And you can tell where it is by these little white carrots on the perimeter of the circle in the screen. You need to use the E key on PC to target these things, and then you need to fly close enough so that you can loot them. So keep looking for the carrots, keep using your E key to target, fly close enough, grab all the loot. You notice there were ship parts there. Those are what you can use to repair your own hull if it gets damaged and your shields go down. And of course, as I mentioned, there is a ship builder in this game, but that's a whole other tutorial to go over. So for now, we're going to leave it at this. All right, there you go, folks. That does it for my Starfield newbie guide. I know there are many more topics to cover in this game because it is a huge RPG, but I didn't want this video to run too long just for a newbie guide. So go out there, head into the cosmos, and have fun. If you found the guide useful at all, please be sure to give it a like, thumbs up, possibly subscribe to my channel. That would be helpful. And if there are any future Starfield guides that you want to see from me, please leave that in the comments below. I'm your host, Colors Fade, and I'll see you next time. Until then, happy gaming, everyone.